What up guys, Supermetal983 here bringing you another album review, and this time we've got some Scottish brutality for you to check out today. But yeah, I'm going to be reviewing the new album from the band Scordatura entitled Mass Failure. This is released under Gore Productions. Now, if you're not too familiar with Scordatura, they're a four-piece brutal death metal band hailing from Scotland, and I've been a massive fan of these guys for many years, ever since I first saw them back in the day supporting Cerebral Bore when they played Sunderland, of all places, you know, my hometown. But yeah, not many bands come here at all, to be honest. But anyway, that was an immense gig and my first introduction to the band. And yeah, ever since then, I've grown to absolutely love these guys, from their debut album Torment of the Week, which was absolutely fantastic, and especially their last album that came out in 2017 entitled Self-Created Abyss was like when I reviewed Psychotoxin recently. I says that Gamageddon, this one, should have been in my top albums of that year, and Self-Created Abyss by Scordatura is another one of those albums, because I don't even know why I didn't put it in there, because that album, in my opinion, is fucking quality. Such a quality album, and something that you all need to hear. If you're into your fast, intense death metal, then definitely check out that album. It's absolutely fantastic. So, with me being a massive fan of the band for many years, you can expect that I was really excited for this new album. And yeah, now we're here to do a review of it. So yeah, it's 9 tracks and runs around 35 minutes in length. And what can you expect from this album? And to put it lightly as I can, you're in for one punishing ride with this album, because this is an absolute monumentous album to listen to. Like, Self-Created Abyss was incredibly brutal in itself, but this one takes on that sort of recipe that they had on that album, going for more chaotic factors and more intense songwriting. Like taking you take Torment of the Week, they had a more slammy sort of a straight up brutal death metal sort of approach to the songwriting and stuff, whereas as they've moved on from that album, they've grown more into a straight up brutal fast death metal sort of approach, kind of along the same sort of lines of the likes of Cryptopsy, Cannibal Corpse and Suffocation, for example. So if that sounds up your alley, then Scordatura are definitely a band that you need to check out. And I mean, this album definitely encapsulates the growth and well, just the overall growth that the band has gone through since Torment of the Week. And this one is definitely their most refined work to date. I mean, this album, from beginning to end, literally there is no breaks on this album, because this is just relentless Scottish brutality from track 1 to track 9. There's no rest, there's no breath, there's no time to even breathe. You're just getting assaulted with riffs and meaty chunks of brutality, left, right and centre. You're in for one wild ride when you listen to this. And I do feel like this is a bit more of a refined sounding album, because like as I said, with Torment of the Week, they were upping their speed and intensity a little bit onto Self-Created Abyss, whereas they're keeping that intensity and diabolicalness on this on Self-Created Abyss, but on Mass Failure, but refining it a little bit more and just making it hit that little bit harder, like hitting it as hard as they did on the last album, but making it seem a lot more chunkier to listen to. And I feel like it's doing them a lot more favours on this album, because quite frankly, like as I said, it doesn't let up, but it just seems so enjoyable from beginning to end. It's such a massive sounding album, and I think the production does that as well for them, because the drum work is very reminiscent of the stereotypical brutal death metal slang, with a really bright sounding drum kit, but it definitely works in their favour. When I hear that drum sound and the overall production, I think immediately of Scordatura, with the meaty riffs and the really bright sounding drum work crossing with the really meaty guitars. It just mixes very well, if you ask me. It really sounds punishing. It sounds a little bit more just punishing to listen to. You know, if you listen to Scordatura, you know what you're in for, and this album is definitely not going to disappoint on that front. But yeah, I definitely love the riffs on this album. There's definitely that factor that they've always had going for them on Self-Created Abyss as well, but they've brought it onto this album as well and gone, and I feel like this one definitely takes on a bit more of a darker sense to it, like, not as if like blackened sense, it just feel like the riffs just feel a little bit more darker and more menacing on this album compared to Self-Created Abyss, and I feel like it really pushes the boundaries a little bit more, going from a little more, it just gives the album just that, and their overall sound, a little bit more depth and dynamics to it, and it really shows a lot more growth in the band, and I really think this album definitely is a perfect representation of Scordatura nowadays, and that's what an album's meant to do. With every album, you're meant to see a progression in them, and I feel like this album for Scordatura is a really good representation of them today, because each instrument definitely executes that, and in particular I want to give a shout to the bass work on this album, because the bass tone is absolutely incredible. Now, I thought on Havoc's album V, like Havoc have always had an amazing bass tone, but I think this one might be one of my favourite bass tones and bass performances on this on any record in 2020, because the mix, it just cuts through like a knife through butter. It has, in my personal opinion, the bass tone and overall playability that Cannibal Corpse should fucking have. That's my personal opinion, because I feel like Cannibal Corpse's bass tone is just, well, to be honest, I think shit personally. But Alex's bass tone is always, bass playability has always been amazing. But this one, I might as well say that this album definitely has a really nice, clunky and chunky bass tone that when the little segments come up, especially on the first song that they released for this album, which was the 5th track, World Devoured, that intro on the bass, I was just like, yeah, that is a meaty bass tone. I think there's been it's been a little bit refined when preparing for the album, because I think, you know, I could just hear a little difference between the original version when they dropped the single to this one. I just hear a little bit of difference, but it sounds really amazing if you ask me. So yeah, the little bass breaks in songs just sing out to me a little bit more. Maybe the fact that because I'm a bass player as well, but just when it cuts through just like that, or there's just a little segment of it, it just makes an album for me. It's weird, I know, but I absolutely love it personally. And like I said, along with the chunky guitar tone and that clanky bass, or clunky, should we say, because it's got a bit more beef to it, that clunky bass tone behind it, and then the high-end drum production behind it, it just makes it a really nice, refined and beautiful mix, if you ask me. So yeah, production-wise, I can't fault this album. And then on top of that, we've got Daryl's vocals. Now, Daryl, his vocals I've always admired since I first heard them on Torment of the Week, or really when I first saw them live. But yeah, through every release, he's pushed his boundaries a little bit more and not just become another death metal vocalist in the scene. Like, in general, in the whole death metal genre, he's not just, he's not that guy who just does lows and highs and then that's it. He's really refining his tone. He's getting more pronunciation. He already had quite a bit of pronunciation, but his pronunciation is getting way better, especially on this album. I feel like it excels him a little bit more, because each word you can hear it, whether it's a low or high. But his tunnel throats that I really admired on Self-Created Abyss was incredible. But I feel like this one, they just sound a little bit more wretched, a little bit more filthy sounding, and there was a lot of use of it on Self-Created Abyss, and to make that album stand out. Whereas I feel like they're not as over the top on this album, and not in a bad way or anything, because I love Self-Created Abyss, as I said. But I feel like the more utilised a little bit more on this album, should we just say. And his lyrics are absolutely fantastic. His growth as a lyricist as well has been absolutely incredible and something to admire. And throughout the entire listen of this album, I fell in love with it. And this album definitely makes us fall in love again with Scordatura. I mean, Self-Created Abyss, I think I just listened to it a couple of times, and then towards the end of the year, I just kind of like left a little bit, but then after that came back to it and fell in love with it again. Whereas this album, ever since I got the promo, I have been listening to the shit out of this, and I guarantee you, 100%, that this is going to be in my top albums come year's end, because man, I can't get enough of this album. Tracks I would recommend you check out are Disease of the Mind, excuse me, Disease of the Mind, World Devoured, and the title track Mass Failure. Yeah, make sure you check out those songs. Absolutely incredible album from Scordatura. If you're into your death metal, then this is a release that you definitely need to wrap your ears around, and trust me, you will not be disappointed. Absolutely incredible stuff. For an overall score though, I'm going to give this a solid 9 out of 10. Absolutely incredible stuff. I know I'm giving a lot of high scores lately, but I'm trying to catch up on my reviews and highlighting some of my favourite releases that I've been listening to lately, and this one is definitely one of those. So make sure you check out Mass Failure by Scordatura, released under Gore Productions in 2020. 9 out of 10. So I'll see you until next video, and remember, stay metal, and I'll see you later.